Afternoon and welcome to bill hearings from the House Health and Government Operations Committee. I'm your chairman, Jocelyn Peña-Milnick, and I'm joined to my left by my wonderful vice chair, Bonnie Collison, Delegate Bonnie Collison, and to my right by our legal counsel, Lindsay. Okay?
That's me.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's what you get when you try to eat just before you come and you're still swallowing. I apologize. I kindly ask for your patience if we encounter any technical streaming issues. Please set your electronic devices, and I'm going to do the same, so that to vibrate. As a reminder, there's no food or drink allowed in the gallery. If you see us drinking, it's because we sit here for hours and we do have to drink, okay, so that we don't get sick. For each bill, we're going to hear from the bill sponsor and the sponsor panel, followed by an all-person witness, favorable with amendment, and unfavorable. Then all virtual witnesses. We do allow for virtual testimony so that people that are not able to come to Annapolis have an opportunity to be part of the process as well. If there are a large number of witnesses, I will alternate between the panels just to try to be fair and balanced between favorable and unfavorable. The bill sponsor testimony in this committee is not limited. However, that does not mean that you can take forever. Try to be kind and give us some grace, okay? The witnesses, though, have 2 minutes. So we need you to provide your testimony within those 2 minutes. Whatever you give to the committee, we read. So, we will read your testimony as well. A timer is displayed on the screen, and that witness panel sound, timer will sound and let you know that your time has expired. For the committee members, I first want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for coming on time. Thank you for the work you're doing and for the work you're going to be doing. As you know, we do a lot here on subcommittee, and we have a lot of meetings when we're not here on the floor. And I want to thank you for your work. Please adhere to our usual committee rules of 1 question and 1 answer, and please keep your questions brief. And also, if you ask a question, ask it to one particular person on the panel, not to everyone. And for the witnesses, we're only going to ask you we'll let you know who the question is directed. The members of the public are able to view us and view what we do. It is live stream. And this year, we do have something that came out of this committee. If you recall, last year, we had a deaf-mute individual that was having a hard time giving her testimony, and we didn't have the closed captioning, and because of that experience, we now have closed captioning, which is amazing. However, it does pick up the conversation, so try not to have anything that can be picked up, any conversation as well. Today, we're going to hear the bills in the following order, although I reserve the flexibility to change it. If my colleagues are running late and they're in another committee, I'm going to give them the grace to not stress them out and let them get here when they can, and the witnesses as well. The first bill today is House Bill 196, followed by House Bill 138, followed by House Bill 181, followed by House Bill 276, 142, 316, 106, and House Bill 77. So let's call the witnesses for House Bill 196, which is the chair of HGO. It was a departmental request, State Government, Department of Veterans and Military Families, Board and Commission membership and oversight. So who is here today on House Bill 196? Can you please come forward? And all the witnesses on this bill, please come forward and have a seat. When you, if you could tell us who you are once you have a seat, and welcome to the Health and Government Operations Committee.
Good afternoon, Dana Burrell, Deputy Secretary for the Department of Veterans and Military Families.
Good afternoon, you can get started. We are all yours. You have all these people looking at you. But they're nice. I can attest to that.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Pena-Melnick, Vice Chair Collison, and members of the Health and Government Operations Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on House Bill 196. Our mission at the department is to guide veterans and their families through life's transitions and to position Maryland as the premier state for veterans and their loved ones. To fulfill this mission, the department prioritizes honoring those who have served by preserving our veteran memorials as well as enhancing operational efficiency for commissions and boards. Today, I am here to express our support for House Bill 196, a bill focused on the War Memorial Commission, the Maryland Veterans Trust Fund, and the Maryland Veterans Commission. The War Memorial Commission, established in 1924, oversees the War Memorial Building with day-to-day operations managed by the City of Baltimore under our agency's oversight. Over time, commissioner appointments and attendance at meetings has declined. To streamline operations, we recommend eliminating the War Memorial Commission and in turn granting oversight responsibilities to our cemetery and memorial program. Additionally, we propose giving the department the authority to adopt regulations in partnership with the City of Baltimore to ensure the building's historical integrity is preserved. Staff of the City of Baltimore will continue to manage day-to-day operations at the building. Our oversight will be high level, not intended to supplant the city's role in operating the site, and not altering the existing cost-sharing agreement between the department and the city. Further, to improve efficiency and ensure quorum during trust fund board meetings, the bill also proposes adjusting the voting status of certain members of the trust fund board. The department appreciates the ongoing support of the legislature who often make referrals to the trust fund. We also are mindful of our legislative partner schedules and understand how busy they are. By changing the voting status for Senate and House appointees, the board will be better equipped to address trust fund matters and reach a quorum despite vacancies or absences, while still ensuring our legislative partners have the opportunity to make contributions to the board. Lastly, this bill addresses challenges in filling seats on the Maryland Veterans Commission due to the aging out or inactivity of certain organizations. We recommend revising membership to include a nonprofit actively serving our military-connected community. This bill makes membership more inclusive and provides the opportunity for our nonprofit partners to be an additional voice for our veterans and military families on the Commission. The bill also gives the department authority to remove certain seats as needed, minimizing the need for future legislative amendments. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on House Bill 196. We respectfully request a favorable vote on this bill and value your continued support of Maryland's veterans and military families. Thank you.
You do and for your testimony today. I'm going to open it up now for our members. Are there any questions regarding this bill? Seeing none, your testimony was amazing. They have no questions. And this actually concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 196. We are going to follow next to House Bill 138, and that is the burial at state veteran cemeteries. It's called the Burial Equity Act. And if you can come up and tell us your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Russ Ware. I'm the Director of Cemeteries and Memorials for the Department of Veterans and Military Families.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking.
And who's with you?
It's my service dog, Gerta.
Oh, how old?
She's 4.
Oh, welcome.
She says thank you.
Tell her if she can solve our budget problems.
I don't...
Go ahead.
Maybe.
You can get started.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Pena-Melnick, Vice Chair Collison, and distinguished members of the committee. I am Russ Ware, the Director of Cemetery and Memorial Programs for the Maryland Department of Veterans and Military Families, and I am here today to speak in favor of House Bill 138, which would allow National Guardsmen and members of the military reserves to be buried in our state veteran cemeteries, along with their eligible family members. It also removes the state residency requirement for veteran interments, which is necessary for our state to receive VA cemetery grants, as well as the eligible dependents of out-of-state veterans. I served 25 years of active duty in the United States Air Force, and during that time, I witnessed firsthand the incredible sacrifices made by National Guardsmen and reservists. These men and women serve in a wide variety of essential roles, often in dangerous and life-threatening situations. Their dedication to our country is no less significant than that of the active duty personnel, and it's time that we recognize their sacrifices by providing them with the honor of being buried in a state veteran cemetery. While the federal government provides burial rights for veterans, it does not currently extend the same privilege to guardsmen and reservists. This bill will share the privilege and will also remove the existing requirement for veterans to be current or previous Maryland state residents, a change that is necessary to meet the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs eligibility criteria for cemetery grants. This change ensures that all veterans who had served, regardless of where they call home, and their eligible dependents have access to burial benefits and places a greater focus on honoring their service rather than their residency. Passing this bill will not only generate revenue for the state cemetery program by regaining the ability to apply for federal cemetery expansion grants, but will also help sustain the system and ensure its continued operations for future generations. Also, the program will receive federal funding to cover the costs of out-of-state veterans' burials. However, there will be a financial impact on state funds for the burials of out-of-state dependents. The cost of supporting the growth and expansion of the cemetery program by extending benefits to dependents of out-of-state veterans. By supporting this bill, Maryland demonstrates that we honor the service of all veterans, whether they served on active duty, the reserves, or the National Guard. I respectfully ask for a favorable report on House Bill 138, as it ensures that all who serve this nation are given the respect and dignity they have earned. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Your testimony today. I'm going to open it up for questions from the committee. Any questions? Delegate Hill.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
It was my honor.
I'm looking at the fiscal note, and it says that under the current definitions, the cemetery program has averaged 3,500 interments each year.
Yes.
Do you have any idea if we now include this additional group who serve us well, and so I'm no questioning their service, but what that number is? I don't even know how many active guardsmen there are in the state, let alone retired former guardsmen.
I understand. Right now, I'm going to answer this in two separate answers because it really applies to two different categories. For the in-state guardsmen and reservists, the impact will be unnoticeable really at this time. We're getting a little bit, maybe 35, both combined, the member and the eligible dependent. There's no financial impact on that one. Now, for the out-of-state veteran, we receive federal funding for each veteran that is qualified. If they were eligible to be buried in a national cemetery, then they have eligibility to be buried in a state cemetery. And that means that they have the VA benefit of a paid-for burial. We, in Maryland, removed the fee for dependents approximately 2 years ago, which was a source of revenue for the program. We received subsidy from the state to receive for that number. What we don't have now is, since we're now allowing the eligible dependents from out of states, we will not receive any funding specifically for those individual burials. Now, the number, it really would depend. So we were projecting out over the next 5 years, approximately 600 burials. Now, that would be a 70-30 split with approximately 150 within the first 2 years. It really comes down to getting the word out, advertising, let people know that we have that eligible option. I don't see this as an incredible impact, but it will have an impact on our financial status.
Okay, thank you. May I have a follow-up? Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this something that you're asking other states to do too? So Maryland service officers and their families who are now residing in other states will have the same benefit when they go to other states?
Yes, they will have to if they want. Well, let me answer this with what the VA has now declared. Effective January 1st, 2025, if a state puts in a petition for a expansion grant through the Veteran Cemetery Grants Program, they must not have a state residency requirement for burial. That goes along with their ideal of having a cemetery within 50 miles of every veteran. With the state, they're able to get 97% of that to be true. Without the state program, it goes down to about 70%. So in order for us to be eligible, and any other state to be eligible, they need to not have a state residency requirement for burial.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is a letter from the Maryland Military Coalition, and they're going to be testifying for favorable with amendment. But while I have you here, since you're not going to get to reply, to answer, it says that the bill, they are in support, however, the current language is exclusive and needs amendment. And it says that the use of the term military reserves include only members of the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and Space Force, and excludes members of the Coast Guard, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Ready Reserve of the U.S. Public Health Service, the Department of Health and Human Services, who are federal reserves. Says to exclude these reservists who volunteer and place their lives on the line daily does a huge disservice to them and their family members. The second, they said that they need, the second request is that they seek an amendment to correct this and offer the following language. So they have obligation of service as a member of Federal Reserves of the Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and the Ready Reserve of the Commissioned Corps of the U.S. Public Service. It says this language keeps in the spirit of the governor's leave no man behind and conforms to the uniformed services. So if you can reply to that, and then my question will be, does that change the fiscal note?
No, that would not change the fiscal note.
Okay.
And so that would be actually an additional, which we include all, and I see that as all inclusive, no matter who they serve. If they're able to be served, if they're able to get a federal burial at first, and then they're a reserve component of it, they would fall under the same category.
So you would not oppose, you're not
opposed
opposed to the amendment language?
I am not opposed to it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And as you know, we do all the work in subcommittees, so you're welcome to come to the subcommittee when the bill is heard, okay?
That is
As
excellent.
well.
And I am also available for any questions.
And thank you for your service.
It's my honor, ma'am.
And thank your buddy right there.
She will.
So next we have Lynn Nash from the Maryland Military Coalition Commission Officers Association and the U.S. Public Health Services. I think I did your job for you.
I was just going to say you did my job. So let me anticipate your question. Currently, there are 9 ready reservists of the United States Public Health Service residing in Maryland.
Okay.
We were already covered under the state general provisions 1-117, which says that members of the Public Health Service as well as NOAA are considered veterans, and that is currently the practice that's being done by the cemeteries. Our request for the amendment was to include our ready reservist because it's currently defined as military, and that would not be us.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for being, oh, there is a question, Delegate Hill.
Thank you. I would have asked the last person, but I'd run out of my quota. So I just want to be clear. The funds for burying are provided by the feds or they're not, I mean, it's taxpayers either way, as Delegate Szeliga would point out. It's not provided by the feds, it is provided by the feds. If we do this, Maryland has to come up in our tight budget with even the small amount of how does this work?
So currently, because of the statute, our officers, our active duty officers are already covered. So that is no change to your fiscal note.
Covered by the feds?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe. And I mean, the amount is $948. That's the amount.
And so we're adding the beneficiaries.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's still federal money that we'll be pulling on. Okay.
Mr. Ware would have to
That's okay.
address that
Don't worry
part.
about it. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
It is federal money, but also they can apply for grants. I was told when I met with the department, and that helps. And there is a lot of money out there, and my understanding is that we need the bill in order to go after those money as well.
Correct. So our VA National Cemetery is full. And there are five state cemeteries. I believe there may be a new one at the Sykesville Veterans Home that's under construction. And some are more used than others, and there is a bill that has been put forward to do some sort of an inventory of the Maryland state cemeteries to kind of get an idea of how many spaces are open, and that will give you some better fiscal thoughts.
Yeah, and so it says that the bill is not anticipated to materially affect local government operations and finance, and it says that it will increase by an indeterminate amount. However, we will get federal funds, and we can also get grants. And my understanding is that when that is all said and done, it's very, very minor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? It helped that I met with you beforehand. Go ahead. Just
No.
kidding.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You have a great day. And this actually concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 138. Next, we are going to go on to House Bill 181, followed by 276. And these are all, that will conclude the departmental bills, and then we're going to go to the individual delegate bills. So 181 is actually Military Department Chief of Staff and Aide Appointment Authority. One of my favorite people. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, ma'am?
And can you tell them your name and your rank, because I am so proud of you.
Major General Janine Burkhead, Adjutant General for the state of Maryland.
And welcome to HGO.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad to be with you. So, Chair Pena-Melnick and Vice Chair Colson, members of the committee, a sincere thank you to Chair Pena-Melnick for agreeing to serve as the primary sponsor of House Bill 0181, which authorizes the Adjutant General to appoint their direct staff in the Maryland Military Department. House Bill 0181 would simply place in statute the operational reality of the Adjutant General to appoint their senior staff, removing the antiquated and confusing part of Public Safety Article 13-306 and meets Governor Moore's FY26 budget principles of modernizing government. Direct control over personnel will allow future adjutants general to manage their workforce more efficiently and effectively. The adjutant general is an appointee of the governor and the lead state official for the Maryland Military Department. To have a chief of staff and aides appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the governor is not consistent with Section 13-302, which allows the adjutant general to appoint key select staff. This would be a potential impact to the chain of command and endanger the highly regarded cohesion of the department. The Adjutant General has statutory authority under 13-302 to appoint a range of key positions within the department, including the Chief of Staff of Operations, an Executive Officer, an Administrative Officer, and several other critical roles. The Chief of Staff for the Maryland Military Department functions in a capacity similar to those other senior leaders, making it logical and consistent for the Adjutant General to have the authority to appoint this position as well. The governor will continue to have the authority to appoint significant leadership roles, such as the Assistant Adjutant Generals for both the Maryland Army National Guard and the Maryland Air National Guard, as well as the Deputy Assistant Adjutant General. This bill therefore seeks to eliminate redundancy and confusion by aligning the appointment of the Chief of Staff with the existing practice and statutory framework that grants the Adjutant General the ability to appoint key civilian and uniformed senior leaders within the department. I thank you for your time and consideration, and I'll take your questions.
For your testimony, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
I see Delegate Shalega.
Thank you. Welcome, Major Burkhead. Thank you for being here. And I'm proud to represent Martin State Airport, as you know, and the base and the 175th and all the great things going on there. And this sounds like a great bill. What took so long?
We were a little busy. So,
Yes, you were. Well, thank you so
Yes.
much for being here.
Thank
You know,
you.
if you ever need anything, you know we're here to support you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So much for your testimony and your service.
Thank you.
This
You all have a good
concludes
day.
the bill hearing on House Bill 181. Next, I am going to actually call Delegate Harris, which is House Bill 106. And if you have a panel, if they can come up, that would be great, Delegate Harris.
All righty. Great afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for taking this time, and members of the Health and Government Operations. I am Delegate Kevin M. Harris. I represent Legislative District 27A, which covers Charles and Prince George's County. Thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 106 before you today. This bill updates the term first responders under the public safety article to include certain employees of the Maryland Department of Transportation. This includes emergency response technicians, facility maintenance technicians, and vehicle services and recovery technicians. Thus recognizing the technicians who are first to respond to incidents on roads, making way for emergency and public safety personnel. In addition to supporting our fire and EMS and law enforcement, MDOT workers are often the first to respond to inclement weather, a crucial role highlighted by the most recent snowstorm here in Maryland last week. MDOT currently employs around 2,700 individuals who are on the front lines during severe weather events, ensuring that our roads remain safe and passable. These dedicated workers frequently navigate dangerous conditions and high-stress situations, often putting their own safety at risk to protect the public. Recognizing them as first responders ensures they receive the same safeguards as the public safety personnel they support. For these reasons, and those will be expressed by MDOT employees here today, I ask for a favorable report of House Bill 106, and I will also add that there is no fiscal note on this particular bill. Thank you for your time and attention.
I would, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Vice Madam Chair and the members of the HGO Committee. My name is Wynton Johnson, and I'm an MDOT employee for State Highway Administration, and I'm the president of Local 631, Anifa Council, ASME Council 3. I urge here today, strongly urge you to support Bill HB 106. The bill expands definition of first responders to include emergency response technicians, facility maintenance technicians, and service vehicles. Vehicle service and recovery technicians that's employed by MDOT. My workers, every day on the front line to respond to accidents, like vehicle accident, road hazard, extreme weather events. We often are among the first to respond to the scene, along working side police, fire departments, and public safety to keep Maryland's moving and reduce risk on our roadways. For example, everyone in here knows of 210 is considered the highway of hell. I hate to say it that way, but it is, and that's in my area. I was on there one time. I was called to shut the road down because of a pedestrian that got killed, and I had to be the one to hold the sheet over top of the person to block the view of the oncoming traffic. Then years ago, when we had the racing, the drag racing, and they went to the media and killed numerous people, I had to be there with the dead bodies and shutting off the roads. I have been on the road where as though I shut down the road and someone came into our work zone and I had to dive over a guardrail. So that's what we mean by we out there and we are working in hazard conditions. And it was said that we are basically the first ones there, and we do shut the roads down, and we are in the hazard work area. So I ask for your support in Bill HB 106. By passing this bill, you affirm the assurance of every individual who contributes to keeping our state safe and functional. And thank you, Delegate Harrison, for sponsoring this bill, and I ask committee for a favorable report on HB 106. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you, okay?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Next, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the HGO Committee. My name is Juan Carter, and I'm an employee of the Maryland Department of Transportation and a proud member of ASHME Local 1803. I currently work in Annapolis at the District 5 office, and I'm here today to strongly urge you to support HB 106. As Winton mentioned, the bill expands the definition of first responder to include state employees like myself who work on the front lines and respond to accidents like vehicle accidents, road hazards, and extreme weather events. I'm often the first on the scene and work alongside police and fire departments to ensure public safety and keep Marylanders moving and reduce the risk of injury on the roadways. According to the definition of first responder in the Homeland Security Act of 2002, the term first responder refers to the individuals who in the early stages of an emergency incident are responsible for the protection and preservation of life, property, evidence, and the environment, including emergency response. Emergency response provides as defined in this Homeland Security Act, as well as emergency management, public health, clinical care, public works, and other skilled support personnel, such as heavy equipment operators, that provide immediate support services during prevention, response, and recovery operations. A full list of these emergency responders are emergency public safety, law enforcement, emergency response teams, emergency medical, including hospital emergency facilities, public health, clinical care, public work, and other skilled and support personnel, such as, again, heavy equipment operators. These are just a few. This is just an example of why I ask that you consider this bill and expand the definition of a first responder here in Maryland. I would also like to thank Delegate Harris for sponsoring this bill, and ask that the committee for a favorable report on this bill, because it's the right thing to do for those who put their lives on the line every day. Thank you.
For your service, okay? We really appreciate you and your colleagues.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to open it up for questions. I saw Delegate Hutchinson first, then Delegate Kerr. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Delegate, pardon my ignorance about this, but what benefits come from being identified as a first responder? Like, it's one thing to be called it, but what happens when you become one then?
Yeah, so there's certain benefits, i.e., like, you get to go to, you got half off on certain discounts on certain items, half off on going to different museums and stuff like that. So those are the different criteria that fall underneath the benefits for first responders.
Could I add to that?
Yeah.
Could I add to that? Also, it will help us as far as budgetary matters, equipment and that sort of thing, because, for example, right now we're riding around in some vehicles with 200,000 miles on them. So with Maryland being in a crunch, it offers us being first responders, it offers us another resource for money in fiscal business. So not just for the employees, but it's for the entire state of Maryland.
Okay. May I have a follow-up, please?
Yes.
How about snowplow drivers? Are they under this bill too?
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
that's one of the classifications
Okay.
there. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
To the end to see if my question was asked, but I'm going to follow up on the delegate's question. Do you get any additional money on payment, life insurance, or any, state compensation? And if you don't know, it's okay, we can find
I
out.
can answer that.
Yes,
I've been here for over 20 years, and no, ma'am, sure haven't. We haven't gotten nothing like that.
but if we were to change this, would that allow you to qualify for that?
Yes.
Yes, in the long run, yes.
Okay, but you're the first to get to the scene anyway, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Delegate Kerr, followed by Delegate Taveras.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate, I too was surprised to see that there was no fiscal note. We did some, a couple of years ago, we made 911 specialists first responders, and I think what happens is that they also get the benefit of presumption and level 3 worker compensation benefits. Now, we only allow one person to respond, so you could probably tell me who's best to respond on your panel, but do DOT workers already enjoy those two benefits, or would this be something that they would get in addition and the fiscal note writer just didn't catch it?
Can you repeat it, please? I didn't hear the benefits you said. I'm sorry.
The presumption, meaning that, you know, if you get heart disease, it's presumed that you got it because of the stress of the job, and level 3 worker compensation that provides additional worker compensation benefits. So if you don't know what they are, maybe you don't have them.
We don't have them.
We don't have them.
We do not currently have those.
Would you get them?
It would be nice.
But that brings me back to my initial reason for asking is the lack of a fiscal note.
Right.
Because it seems like there would be some fiscal impact.
Yeah, so we went back and checked on that fiscal note, and because we were surprised to see it wasn't any, but they came back to us and mentioned that there wouldn't be an additional fiscal note just to add them to that category. It's just, they said it won't be an additional, which is pretty interesting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Taveras, followed by Chisholm, followed by Johnson.
Thank you. Let me put on my glasses so I can hear y'all. Okay. So I was looking, thank you for coming forth. My concern is, I recall like a couple of years ago, we were doing next gen upgrades to 911, and it cost us about $40 million generally to upgrade the systems that were about 50 years old, and we ended up having to increase the cost of phone charges at the county level. And I recall having to increase it by 25 cents from $1 to $1.25. And you see that on your phone bills. And and typically that goes to seniors. And so it's just a little concerning because I see that plus 988 where folks are trying to figure out, given that we're fully funded 988, how folks are trying to tap into that. And so
Delegate Taveras, what is your question?
I'm just concerned that if we are looking to tap into this, that there will come a fiscal note at some point, and we will be double dipping into these funds that may be drawing away from the purpose of 911 and 988.
Okay, that's that.
I don't think you need to,
Right.
there's not a question there, right? Because those are your concerns. So do you have a question that you want to ask?
No, I'm just asking, do you think that it would?
They said that the fiscal note says that it doesn't. Now, it's going to go to subcommittee. The subcommittee can ask more questions, right?
Okay.
One situation can be that they currently receive, since they work for the Maryland Department of Transportation, a lot of the state benefits already, right? Like the health insurance and pension already. So that, I will venture to say that that is probably the answer there. The difference will be what Delegate Kerr was getting into, you know, the different presumptions that we give to first responders, but that's because they put their lives in danger, right? So we made a legislative decision to do that. So we will send it to subcommittee and we will get some of those answers.
No, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Oh, you're welcome. Delegate Chisholm, followed by Johnson, followed by Shalega.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate, for bringing the bill, and gentlemen, for your service. I just want to give you the opportunity, because I did see the letter of opposition, which, when I read it, the last sentence is, while the duties performed by DOT personnel are very important, we do not believe that they should be included in the definition of a first responder. And when I saw that, I'm like, well, that means one of two things. Either they're losing something, or is it just a distinction of what they do? I was curious on why they were opposed, and if you had any conversations with the State Fire Association or Firemen's Association to find out why they might be opposed, and if there's anything to help them get along. Because it does go back to the physical note. I'm like, there's got to be money here somewhere that's getting moved around. Are they losing any, or why are they opposed if it has no physical effect on them?
Absolutely. Great question. And so we did have a conversation with the Maryland State Firefighter Association that represents the volunteer fire and rescue emergency medical services personnel. And they just wanted to know the type of technicians that we were putting underneath this code. And then they took that to their volunteer members, and they came with this vote. I appreciate you actually reading that sentence. I will actually also read the sentence prior to that as well, where it states that the services provided by the Department of Transportation are sometimes necessary in order for our first responders to gain access to the scene of an emergency and perform their duties. And so even though they're unfavorable, they understand the importance of what the Department of Transportation does and helps them get to do their job more efficiently.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Followed by Shalega.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for bringing this bill, Delegate. I like the bill. I'm piggybacking off of Delegate Kerr's question. Because it has no physical note, I know in our first responders, they're entitled to some reduced taxable income, like the firefighters, police officers, et cetera. So would that entitle MDOT workers to reduced taxable income? Do you know?
I can go back and look and find that answer for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
By Olston.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And certainly we all appreciate the work that that the folks in this bill do for us. My question is this. The title of the bill is Public Safety 911 Emergency Telephone System. Are the tow truck drivers and snowplow drivers, et cetera, are they part of the 911 system? Do you get a call from 911?
So to answer that question, no, the title, I was taken back by the title as well. The reason why that title is there is that's where they pulled the actual legislation from. We actually was looking at how to change, we're looking at changing the title, but that is where the 911 first responder originated from, is this particular bill.
Yeah, I have a little bit of concern with that, with the first, not with what you're doing, but we don't want you all to be part of 911, do we? Do you want? I don't think that's the focus of 911.
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
There's some confusion. Thank you.
If I may help a little, in the in the fiscal note, it says the bill expands the definition of first responder used within the public safety article in reference to state's 911 emergency telephone system to include, so they have to draft it to that article.
Right.
And that's the reason why. Now, the question is, when the bill goes to subcommittee, and I guess we'll talk to council, can we change it a little to reflect more what the bill actually does?
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think that this causes confusion.
It does.
Because of obviously people on both sides of the issue, you know, and you don't want to be on the 911 call. You don't want to be the guy holding the sheet for the body, and you're not trained to do that. So we don't want you to have to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. Thank you so much. Delegate Olston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, what's the best legislative district in Maryland?
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Bless your heart.
You can say the one you live in.
I know the one I live in. I know, but I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Thank you for coming and for your service.
Thank you. Any other questions for Delegate Harris? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it. And so that you know, next I'm going to call the one unfavorable on this bill as well. And then we will assign this to subcommittee, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
committee.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
your
having us here today.
service.
Thank you.
And we have next an unfavorable, and that is the Maryland State Firemen's Association. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Joel McCrae. I am a member of the Legislative Committee for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. And I want to say that Maryland State Firefighters Association, as noted in the letter, is in full appreciation of the services provided by our partners in the Maryland Department of Transportation. And while we agree that the duties of a dump truck driver, snowplow operator, maintaining a maintenance facility, or operating a tow truck are indeed important to carry out the mission of the Maryland Department of Transportation, we believe that the DOT job duties do not meet the definition of a first responder whose primary directive, as being directed by the 911 Center, is to assist individuals in life-threatening situations. And for that reason, I respectfully request an unfavorable vote on the bill.
For this gentleman. Delegate Hill.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. I know that the organization was in favor a few years ago when we included 911 operators in the definition.
Yes.
And we've also included, I think, some state forest rangers in that. Can you help us to understand from your standpoint? I mean, there's a lot of support staffing, which is critical for all the jobs that we do, right? Can you help us understand what you think that line is between a first responder versus critically important personnel who support the mission?
Primarily, when we're dispatched, we're putting our lives on the line pretty much for many of the calls we go to. I myself, I'm a firefighter, so every call I go on involves a fire or a rescue. I'm really putting my life on the line, and I'm trying to assist an individual or individuals that are probably having the worst day of their lives and are in a life-threatening situation. And that would be our definition of a first responder. Now, I do grant that these, Maryland Department of Transportation personnel, they are great assistance to us, and they serve a function, and sometimes they do get there first, maybe to clear the snow or to do, to hold up traffic for us, and that's very much appreciated. But we're the ones hands-on with the patient. We're responding first to get them to sustain their life, get them packaged in many cases, and off to the hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. One of the questions that I have is, let's say if this were to be, if the definition were to be expanded, are there any consequences that would be of concern to you in expanding this definition? What do you see? I'm just trying to better understand if this were to move forward, what type of impact would it have on our firefighters and other first responders under this definition? Are there certain unintended consequences that you see from this definition being expanded?
I guess, where do you draw the line? As noted, there's a lot of personnel that support what we do in the background. So I'm not sure where the line would then be drawn. I mean, this MDAT definitions include individuals, correct me if I'm wrong, but individuals who maintain a facility from which the dump trucks or snowplows operate out of. So I'm really not sure, if you do this, where you draw the line on where it stops.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Mr. McCray. I'm, puzzled about, again, as I said to the sponsor, the placement of this, trying to think of a way we can, get a win-win, acknowledge the hard work of the folks, that have been included in this bill. But I notice it says, quote, and this is current language, first responder means an employee of a state or local public safety agency. So this seems like it wouldn't belong there because MDOT is not a public safety agency, are they?
You're correct, Delegate. We don't see a fit either. But
So maybe we just need to find a different place in the code to put this. Thank you.
Just on what Delegate Shalega said, it says, first responder means an employee of a state or local public safety agency that provides emergency response services, and it includes, will you agree that this category of people that we have in front of us, and let's just deal with a vehicle service and recovery technician employed by the Maryland Department of Transportation, that they do, oftentimes they're the first to get to the scene, especially on the highway, correct?
sometimes you are, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and that you couldn't get to the scene sometimes if it weren't for their assistance, correct?
Imagine that could be the case, yes.
If the bill was drafted in a manner in which the bill right now covers a facility maintenance technician employed by Maryland Department of Transportation, and it also covers a vehicle service and recovery technician employed by MDOT, and an emergency response technician. If you were to remove the facility maintenance technician employed by MDOT, how would you feel about the bill?
I would concur that maybe a tow truck driver could be considered if they're first on the scene.
And how about the recovery technician who's helping and is often first at the scene?
I believe a recovery technician is referring to a tow truck driver.
I'm not sure if it is, but if it wasn't, let's just say it was an employee who was with the truck driver, right?
Okay, I believe if this goes to subcommittee, I'd be glad to sit in on the conversations and try to refine that definition.
That would be great. Delegate Bandari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee is interested to listen, how does the inclusion of Department of Transportation employees as a first responder impact the traditional roles, responsibility, and resource allocation for firefighters and EMS personnel? I'm wondering if because of the training and qualification or operational confusion or liability or legal implication, what would be the hindering factor there?
I'm not sure how to respond to your question, sir.
I mean, when we put Department of Transportation employees as a first responder, how does that impact the traditional roles you guys play and responsibility or resource allocation, or they don't have adequate training, or there will be operational confusion when you are working together, or any liabilities or any legal implication, those sort of things?
I'm not sure of any liabilities or legal implications that would be involved. It's just our definition of what a first responder is.
Okay, thank you.
I have Delegate Goswami followed by Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having listened to the conversation, and this is sort of a correct me if I'm wrong kind of question, it seems we're trying to make a distinction between what is a core function and what is a little bit more of an incidental function. And I don't know where the line is on that, but just your comments on that and a little bit to what Delegate White-Holland was asking around sort of what you seem to indicate of a slippery slope. Is how far does this go? So if you could just comment on that.
As presented, I really see the operations of MDOT as a support function.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient as you listened to the questions, and we appreciate it seriously. And my son is a volunteer firefighter, so I know what you go through. Delegate Olson.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. I'm just curious, if there was a multi-car pileup in the middle of a snowstorm and your trucks couldn't get through, who would clear the snow and start removing the cars because the fire engines aren't equipped to do those things?
You're correct, we're not equipped, and we do rely on our partners at MDOT to do that for us, yes.
And so therefore they would respond first? They would respond first before you get there?
In scenario you presented, they would have to clear a path for us to get through, yes.
Okay, and just briefly, in doing so, are they not putting their lives in danger in those scenarios as well?
No question that they are in a dangerous situation, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for being so patient.
Thank
and
you.
we look forward to seeing you in subcommittee.
Thank you.
You have a blessed day, sir. This actually concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 106. And next, we are going on to House Bill 276, which is the reporting requirement repeal. We're going to then, after that, go, and this in the following order because of the number of witnesses. We're going to go to House Bill 316, followed by House Bill 142, and then the last bill, House Bill 77. Okay, so House Bill 276, will you please tell us your name? Although we know each other, but tell us your name.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, John Willems, now Director of Government and Legislative Affairs with the Department of General Services.
Congratulations on your new position.
Thank you. You'll be seeing a lot more of me, and Ways and Means will be seeing a lot less of me. And Chair Atterbury is not upset at all about that, as she shared with me. But beyond that, we greatly appreciate your sponsorship of this departmental bill, Chair Pena-Melnick. It's a DGS departmental request to repeal an outdated provision of law pertaining to records management. It will ease the burden on state agencies, divisions, and units to prepare and deliver an annual report to DGS that we are no longer responsible for compiling and reporting on following a comprehensive set of reforms that were enacted very recently as described in our agency testimony. I'm pleased to be joined by Christian Skipper, our agency Director of Records Management, and he can share a little more in-depth perspective on the benefits of this bill.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name, as John pointed out, is Christian Skipper. I'm the Director of the Department of General Services Records Management Division, and I urge a favorable report on House Bill 276. As a bit of background on that, the General Assembly voted in 2023 to eliminate DGS's comprehensive forms report after a review determined that it was one of many annual reports deemed obsolete, duplicative, impractical, inefficient, or otherwise unnecessary. Unfortunately, the corresponding requirement for state agencies to submit their own annual forms reports to DGS was not eliminated at that time. Since those submissions no longer serve the intended purpose of providing the underlying data for DGS's final report to the General Assembly, we believe that removing it would eliminate unnecessary labor and free up employees to focus on mission-critical responsibilities for their agencies. The timing on that couldn't be better, as House Bill 276 would also support the governor's recent executive order encouraging government efficiency. Once more, I urge a favorable report, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm sorry. This is really a simple bill, and I don't know why I'm so confused. Are there forms, whether they're online or not, is someone reviewing them? Do we know, are there, and if there are there no forms being used anymore online or paper? I'm confused about what's going on here and who's doing the work and what work is not getting done.
It is a bit muddier than it used to be, just due to the rise in things like data submission portals, that sort of thing. The use of forms by government agencies is not as clearly delineated as when we used to have like print shops and so forth. So there's been, I assume that's why back in 2022, the overall forms report was determined to be unnecessary and obsolete, as it no longer served the intended purpose that it had decades ago.
So there's no report. That doesn't answer, are there forms?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there are still forms in use by government agencies.
Okay, so what's the if we take out this, we took out one report, if we take out this report, where does the oversight, or is there the idea that we don't need to have oversight to make sure our forms aren't going crazy? We just wait for complaints from people using them to deal. What happens now if we pass this bill? Because we're still using forms, people still have to fill them out.
Right.
They're not always the best. So what happens if we take this out?
It would be addressed, I assume, at the agency level, that if there was a form that was problematic, the agency would receive a complaint and update the form accordingly. The reporting element really just identifies how many new forms are created by an agency each year, how many forms are discontinued by an agency, and how many are revised.
Okay, so it doesn't talk about the quality of the forms or the usefulness of the forms?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So, and Delegate Hill's questions were helpful to me, so thank you. But I just want to make sure this bill does is it right now that each of the agencies and departments are submitting forms to you, and for what purpose? Because you're not reporting on them anymore.
Yes, agencies are not submitting forms to us. Agencies are simply submitting the report of their forms that describe in aggregate their number of forms, but they don't submit the individual forms to us.
Sorry, Madam Chair. And then what do you do with them? You have them, and what do you do with them now that the consolidation report has been repealed?
Right. You've struck the nail on the head there. We don't do anything with them. They reside in my network storage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Christian, you had mentioned, I don't have your written testimony, so I couldn't go back and look, but you had talked about there was some bill that relieved an agency from reporting requirements, but then the reports that fed that larger report were not repealed?
Yes, that's correct. In 2023, bill repealed the final report that goes from my office to the General Assembly, but didn't eliminate the corresponding requirement for agencies to send their forms report to me.
How many other agencies or reports similar to the one you're trying to get repealed here exist?
I couldn't say for sure.
Because wouldn't it be more efficient if we just repealed all of them with one bill?
So, Delegate Kerr, it is probably worth noting that the bill that missed the provision that this bill addresses was 70 pages long. And so it covered a lot of forms and requirements that were deemed at the time to be outdated, redundant, superfluous to the sound operation of the agencies, and I presume accountability for their operations. And so that was a kind of massive undertaking that included a lot, but not the provision of this bill.
Because are we going to keep getting these little cleanup bills?
We certainly don't. We have not identified anything that was missed with regard to the role of DGS and what has historically been a kind of a clearinghouse records management role for the department.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for being with us today and for providing the testimony. This actually concludes the hearing. House Bill 276. Next, we're going to go to House Bill 316.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me 1 second. I did forget something. You had an amendment in the letter. Can you come?
Legislative Services, bill drafting was very helpful in pointing out that the effective date of October would, in fact, require yet another year of Christian receiving forms from the various and sundry state agencies. And so an amendment to adjust the effective date to July 1 would cure that. Yes, from October to July would be very helpful. Thank you.
276. Thank you. Next, we are getting to you, Delegate. You can come forward. And this is House Bill 316. Good afternoon. You can get.
And Judiciary, they tell us not to touch the mic. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, Delegate Robin Graham here to present House Bill 316. House Bill 316 adds the term 911 technician to the emergency responder classification 911 specialist. As you know, the legislature changed several years ago, and broadly, the employees who take emergency calls and dispatch emergency agencies are referred to as 911 specialists. A gentleman from my district named James Friedline called me this summer and said, we have a problem, as in Baltimore County, we refer to these employees as 911 technicians. And because of the difference in the title that we use in Baltimore County, these employees don't receive all the same benefits as they should under this article. And I said, that's a problem we want to fix. We drafted a bill. I told Mr. Friedline to go back and talk to all these employees and kind of aggregate the benefits they're not receiving. And unfortunately, Mr. Friedline shortly thereafter died of cancer. So we weren't able to reconnect with any of the people who aren't receiving the benefits that they should, which makes this issue a little complicated. We wanted to bring the bill forward to see who came to the table to talk about this issue. We've worked with Mr. McCrae, and we see him as a partner. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find any disparities in Baltimore County as far as benefits go, but we do have this problem floating, and we do believe that there are still some benefits not received by employees in Baltimore County. So I think that we still have a problem that I'd like to fix if the committee could help us point Baltimore County in the right direction and saying we want to title these folks as 911 specialists. We'd appreciate that. But with that, I'd close, ask for a favorable, and be happy to take questions.
Are there any questions? Delegate Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you think somewhere between now and where this goes to subcommittee, you might be able to find what benefits these employees are not getting?
Yeah, so I've talked with Mr. McCrae, who testified previously. We've reached out to Baltimore County, both the leadership. We've dug around trying to find frontline employees who can point to some benefit that they're not getting. Unfortunately, we've not been able to find those folks, and this is, days or weeks of doing this. So we'll continue to do that, and if we get that information, I'll most certainly get it to you as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? I'm looking at the fiscal note on page 2. The last paragraph says, state local fiscal impact. It says, MDEM and the Department of Legislative Services advise that 911 technicians in many or all counties are likely already considered 911 specialists under the current law definition discussed above. Additionally, each local government that responded to a request for information for this fiscal and policy note advised that either they already consider 911 technicians to fall within the definition of 911 specialists under current law, or they anticipate no fiscal impact from the bill's changes. As such, the bill appears to be clarifying in nature and therefore likely has no impact on state or local operations or finances. However, to the extent that some positions in current PSAPs do not fall under the current definition of 911 specialists, special fund expenditure from the 911 trust fund may increase for their training, continuing education, or other related costs.
Down technically, if we were to just say 911 technicians are the same as 911 specialists, I think that's the easy way to wrap it up. But it's the sense I get of both the advocates and, members of the legislature. We prefer not to just add definitions, 911 specialist, 911 technician. We just want to have the emergency responders that we've listed in statute. But I'd leave that to the committee.
And couldn't you take care of this at local level? Couldn't they change it?
Yeah, we tried to reach out. We did not get a response on this issue.
You reach out to who?
The Baltimore County government, the administration,
To the
county executive's
to the
office.
county executive's office? So when did you do that?
Months ago.
All right, so we have a new county executive. Can you reach out to her,
We'll
please?
do that again, yeah.
And get back to us?
Sure.
And she's served in the legislature.
Yes, ma'am.
As a senator, so she knows the importance of getting back to people. If you could do that and get back to the committee, I appreciate it,
Will
okay?
do.
Any other questions? Yes, Delegate Martinez.
Just for my clarification, during your research, there was no difference between technician and specialist other than just what Baltimore County was classifying? Or is there actually like an industry out there where you can, learn up to be a specialist from a technician? There is nothing of that nature?
No. The actual responsibilities and tasks performed by the technicians in Baltimore County fall perfectly with that are defined as specialist in the statute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Delegate Grammer.
That's okay.
I thought we changed, I think it just seems like, and you can clarify this because you've looked into this, we just changed the designation of 911 specialist. That's a term that we came up with in the past few years. I don't understand, I'm confused. Are you saying that the 911 technician in Baltimore County does or does not do a different job?
Does the same role.
Then why would we want to add the term 911 technician to state law statute when we just took it out?
So what the folks are telling us is we do the job of a 911 specialist, but we don't receive the same benefits. And then I said, help me understand that. And they said, yeah, we'll go ahead and put together a list. And then the gentleman putting together the list died.
Right, but someone else can put together the list.
Yeah, he was my contact, and I can't get a hold of any of those folks.
Because I was on the Next Generation 911 Commission for the last couple of years of its existence, and it feels like this is going backwards. And that if it's not going backwards, it's not the terminology that needs to be changed in statute. It's the list of what they do, and that's not in the bill. So without knowing the distinction, I
think the chair's right. The simple fix is for Baltimore County to fix the title, but these are things outside of my control.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make yourself available for that call, all right? Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I don't see any, so we'll be in touch with you, Delegate. All right, I'll follow up. You're welcome. We have an unfavorable testimony. So, Mr. Joel McCray, will you please come from the Maryland State Firemen's Association? Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, again, my name is Joel McCray, and I'm on the Legislative Committee with the Maryland State Firefighters Association. I want to thank Delegate Grammer for submitting this bill to try to address the concerns of a constituent. As way of background, to answer some of the questions, 911 dispatchers in Baltimore County are civilian employees, and the title is 911 Emergency Communication Technicians. Now, I did reach out to the 911 Dispatch Center in Baltimore County. I am a volunteer in Baltimore County, so I do have connections with that. But I did not receive any feedback that 911 dispatchers perceived a problem related to using the term technician as opposed to specialists. While we understand the intent of the bill, We believe that the language in this bill may cause some confusion on the state level, as pointed by Delegate Hill. She's been working past 2 years to get this 911 legislation updated and provide the benefits to 911 specialists that they need. We believe that the most prudent way to bring uniformity to a job title would be to address it on the local level. So for those reasons, we respectfully request an unfavorable vote on this bill.
None, thank you so much for your testimony today. We will be reaching out to them, okay? And we'll keep you posted. This concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 316. Next, colleagues, we have House Bill 142, and then one more bill left, House Bill 77. We're doing well. House Bill 142, Delegate Miller, thank you for being patient. And for every witness that is here waiting to give testimony or legislator, thank you for being patient, okay? This is actually State Government Veterans and Military Families Ombudsman Establishment. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and my friends on Health and Government Operations. I am Delegate April Miller, and I'm here to present House Bill 142. Military service is one of the most noble sacrifices an individual and their families can make for others. I am introducing this bill in honor of my dad, my nephew, and my daughter, along with the state's approximately 360,000 veterans, 35,700 active duty service members, and 25,600 National Guard and Federal Reserve members and their families. We thank you for your service to our state and our great nation. One of the most impactful days of my daughter's elementary school years, one of those moments most vividly remembered, was when her third grade teacher started talking about the sacrifices of those who serve our country. And suddenly, her best friend started running across the room and straight into her dad's arms. He had been gone for months serving overseas, leaving his wife and 3 very young daughters so he could fulfill his duty. And my little third grader is now grown, married, and about to be a mom. One of the most memorable moments of my life was being able to feel my grandbaby move for the first time. I just had to fly 14 hours to be able to do that, as she moved to Japan 2 days after getting married to be with her Navy husband. She has gone through most of her pregnancy alone, gone to her sonograms alone. Her last Christmas was spent alone, away from any family support. She recently earned her master's at UMGC, but had trouble finding information on applying for tuition assistance. And even now, finding a job in her field has been difficult. We talked last week about applying for help as she is worried about how to afford formula and diapers. I am so proud of her strength and resilience, but she needs support, and that's why we're here today. We have an opportunity to give our military spouses and families that support, starting with just a simple 1-800 number with someone on the other end, with hopefully extended hours so that those serving overseas across the world have someone to call back home that can help them. Those who serve our country give up so much, one of which is precious time, all those day-to-day moments that we take for granted, first steps to first days, anniversaries, holidays, weddings, birthdays, funerals. Each one becomes a moment that they will ever see in a photograph or in a video. We have a veterans health care crisis right now. Military service takes an incredible toll on mental and physical health that impacts veterans and their families for the rest of their lives. They can have TBIs, lose vision, hearing, and limbs. They are more susceptible to various autoimmune diseases and cancers, along with external scars. They are left with many internal ones as well. Mental health issues such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, and substance abuse issues, homelessness, and sadly, with even one being too many, suicide is often seen as a way out. 988 is a veterans crisis line with 24/7 support. However, then what? It can take months to find regular counseling or therapy, a wait time that hit hard when my combat hero veteran nephew called and needed help right away. He was told it would be months and months before he could get an appointment. And just like the night when he first returned home from Afghanistan, when I had no idea about the impact of fireworks after a baseball game, and all I could do was wrap my arms around him and hold him tight with tears streaming down my face until it was over. Not everyone has someone to hold on to help break down barriers to care, to help fight for access, And when our veterans and military families are in crisis, we need to have their backs. And sometimes that can't be accomplished by searching a website or even sending an email. Many military families are food insecure and can have difficulty accessing needed resources. Military spouses are significantly underemployed and often put their lives on hold to support their active duty service member, which adversely impacts their earning potential and careers. And statistically, women bear the brunt of this. They raise their children alone, often separated from family and their spouse, and they have higher divorce rates, especially among enlisted. There are huge impacts on veterans and their family when adjusting back to civilian life. Often they are just trying to survive, to get through the day as they establish a new norm in their life. They can very easily slip back into crisis, and they need someone to call who will pick up the phone, who will come alongside them, help coordinate the massive overwhelm that can consume them. It may involve their health, their taxes, finances, jobs, training, education, service animals, or even finding local support like Platoon 22 in our area. I commend the department on strides they have made to better communicate, but the website can be overwhelming. There's a lot of information. It can be confusing and, of course, is not personalized to an individual situation. They may not even know exactly what they are looking for or what department to reach out to. There can be patterns of lack of services or issues with services that go undetected and underreported. And each year we have passed legislation to help our veterans, which is amazing. But without dedicated, consistent, cross-department outreach, there are veterans and military families who just don't know all the opportunities and support the state of Maryland, federal and local government can give, as well as local veteran service providers. This bill creates a link to have it all in one place, one call. We have their back so they can keep moving forward. You'll hear from the department about redundancy, and frankly, this is a needed link that will only strengthen our ability to respond to our veterans and military families. We need oversight and coordination from a neutral source. Our veterans deserve a visible champion, and a highlight of this bill is that the position must be filled by a veteran. And here's a brief list of all the positions, which I'm going to try to go quickly, that were created from the state to protect and care for vulnerable populations and provide better access and transparency to those that need it most. The State of Maryland Public Access Ombudsman, Maryland State Department of Education, Maryland Department of Human Services, as well as the Foster Youth Ombudsman, and a statewide Family Investment Administration Ombudsman, Special Education and Health Ombudsmans with the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Aging Long-Term Care Ombudsman, Maryland State Police Public Access, Minority Business Enterprise, Unemployment Insurance, Office of the State Tax Sale, Maryland Student Loan Ombudsman, Office of the Comptroller Ombudsman. Many of our public universities and local school systems also have ombudsman positions. And we just passed one for the Office of Corrections Ombudsman out of this committee. April 22nd, 2022 was one of the worst days of my life. We lost my dad. And through a haze of grief and despair, a friend reached out to me and told me to call Arlington. It never occurred to me that you didn't have to be retired military to have that honor. And on November in 2023, we had a full military funeral. And now his final resting place honors the three things that he loved most: God, his family, and country. And with this bill, my hope is that we have a process that reaches more people to let them know options at these very stressful times. Freedom isn't free. There are those that pay a very high cost. Please support them with a favorable report on House Bill 142.
To say thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I'm really sorry about the loss of your father. I want to thank all your members of your family and your friends for serving. And I hope your nephew is doing better. She's right here.
He's right here.
Wonderful. And we don't take it for granted, okay? We really value your feelings and your testimony. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Good afternoon.
Good
And thank
afternoon,
you for
Madam
your
Chair.
service.
Thank you. My name is Adam Maxey. I served in the United States Marine Corps and was deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. Mental health medicine availability is insufficient, with wait times as long as 6 months or to more than a year. These wait times aren't exclusive just to mental health departments, but other departments as well, such as dental care. I was recently told that I had to wait 8 months to get a filling done, and so there's that. The VA is plagued with vague language, communication, unclear benefits, resources, and processes to receive such benefits and care. While there may be positions and resources available, they fall short to help with these concerns. They are bottlenecked and insufficient. This leads veterans to give up on the effort to identify the help that is available to them, and these benefits then go unused because they are difficult to understand or are unknown. While veterans are prioritized, veterans' families have benefits that apply to them as well, or benefits that families need to know in order to understand how to use these benefits, to include burial rights, life insurance, and which is even harder for family members to have access to this information and use more so than the veteran. With regard to these positions and resources already in place, why don't I know about them? And why does it leave me to spend numerous hours hours either on hold or hours trying to understand if there are other options or benefits available? I have done my due diligence to try and get help, but without someone that can navigate the system efficiently, I and many other veterans will continue to be unaware or suffer because of the lack of support. Why is it hard for me to get a hold of someone to help me understand my education benefits? Why do I have to wait 9 months to have therapy for my mental health that is suffering right now? These questions require a solution, one that is not based on policy and forms, but rather a solution that is personally occupied and stood up by a stakeholder that understands the needs and struggles that advocate for Maryland's veterans, which is why I am in favor of House Bill 142. Yes, ma'am.
Open it up for questions. I see Delegate Hutchinson, followed by Alston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming. You had mentioned some education benefits you were trying to seek.
Yes, sir.
What exactly were you trying to?
So as my post 9/11 GI Bill came to expiration, I received several letters saying that it could be extended through some sort of panel of approval. However, when I sought out that information, it just led to dead ends within the VA's website and trying to reach any sort of veteran correspondent within Maryland. It's just too difficult because they always go to voicemail.
Unfortunate. Thank you.
Delegate Alston, followed by Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for your service, both of you, your service to your family and our country. My question is, how long does it take you to get seen by VA? And once seen and once you receive a diagnosis, how long does it take to start getting treatment for that diagnosis?
So from my experience, I can generally get into the VA to be seen initially within a few weeks. But after that initial being seen, treatment plans normally don't occur until 9 to 10 months after the case. With regard to me going to the dental clinic, most recently I got in within 3 weeks, and they said to me they do this so that their numbers look like they're serving the veterans quickly, but the treatment isn't for another 9 months.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm just wondering, when you run into those difficulties, is there a uniform place for you to call and either complain or get help or assistance?
Not entirely that I know about.
Okay. Thank you.
I have Delegate Hill, followed by Shalanda.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for your family's service. Delegate, you are describing problems, as you said, that are just not unique to our veterans. You described a list of ombudsmen that we've created, which doesn't really help anything move faster. And they're not well coordinated, although we do have 211, which is a central calling line that can coordinate. So the question is, where it says that within the Department of Veterans and Military Families, there exist a communications outreach and advocacy program that is designed to do exactly what you're asking the ombudsman to do. Is, particularly in a fiscally tight time, is there a reason why it would not make sense to try and direct them to set up a 1-800 number as opposed to create a new role? Because I do appreciate the importance of being able to get someone on the phone, right? I'm not sure that getting on the phone gets you faster service than 9 months down the road. So I'm asking about what already exists and if we can redirect what they're tasked to do. Because I think it's really, it's just that you don't want to be on a website. It's getting that person on the phone who can say, these people know what those benefits are, but you don't get them on the phone. You're playing with a website. Is there a possibility about that?
I mean, I believe anything that can constructively help our veterans, obviously would be a benefit. The part of the bill that's impactful is this position needs to be a veteran. And veterans have a unique understanding of what their families go through and what their needs are. It would also be an independent, more of an independent type role or type agency, separate a little bit from the department that can help navigate at all levels. And like I said, I appreciate that what the department has done, but obviously there are still gaps. We are still missing areas. And this investment, albeit not a very large investment, which I'm hoping the department could take advantage of, either existing pins or positions that are available, that they would be able to create this position similar to what the comptroller's office did, because we need people during these very, very stressful times to be able to be there for them. And this independent oversight is incredibly important. Sometimes I think we in departments or school boards or whatever it is, sometimes I think that we think that we're doing everything we can to reach out to constituents, but there's gaps. And so sometimes having that outside person to be able to identify what other creative solutions does solve the problem, does coordinate the problem. And I envision this person being a true advocate across the state for veterans and standing up for our families that so deserve it. And I read you the numbers. With family members, we're probably at over 500,000 people that are impacted by this. And it's difficult when you're facing with just a form or just a website or people that you can't get a hold of. So, like I said, that is what I'm hoping for this position. I'm hoping that it supplements, not supplants, that it is part of building more of a team and a triad approach that would be stronger and strengthen those bonds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your service. Thanks for this bill, Delegate Miller. I was kind of going on the same lines as Delegate Hill because the fiscal note says, you've read the fiscal note, that the responsibilities are duplicative. So do you think we could just instruct the Veterans Department to do this and say, does it have to be separate from, you had just mentioned that they should kind of stand alone. Do you think we could accomplish this by instructing them, if it's duplicative, then just do it?
That I will leave that into your capable hands as far as government operations and what has been done with existing ombudsman positions. I like it like I said, I like the position being filled by a veteran. That is incredibly important to me. And to have it be a little bit of a neutral body to help navigate situations that can sometimes be difficult when you're talking about the bridge between federal, the bridge between state, where do we fit in, what can we do to help? So yes, I certainly think that it could be done with existing resources within the department. There has to be a will to do it.
Thank you. And thanks for bringing this to our attention. I looked online while you were testifying, and it doesn't look like there is a national VA ombudsman through the VA. There isn't one. So I sent Congressman Harris an email and said, here's a great idea. It looks like they proposed it in 2008, but it never, I think, made it out of the U.S. Senate. So, this could inspire some folks in D.C. potentially to get this done.
I hope so.
The national VA should have a program like this. Thank you.
So. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your service, and thank you for this bill. I'm going to follow up with the same type of question as Delegate Hill and Delegate Schlegel, but have you studied any, are we the only state that has this problem? Obviously, you talk to your other core members. Are there other states that are actually doing this, have this type of model where it's working? Or would we be the first?
We would be pretty much trailblazers on this, and like I said, even from a national level. I couldn't find anything where the roles were replicated, but in Maryland, that's what we do.
I can speak on behalf of the other people that I've served with that they have the same exact difficulty within every one of the states that they live in. All of my veteran friends and brothers and stuff.
Right, and I think this has been going on for a long time.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other questions? I don't see any. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you will be so kind, I know some delegates leave after they give their testimony, but sometimes it helps if the person stays because I may want to direct them to do something. So will you be so kind and wait?
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I have the person from the Military Coalition and Fort George Meade Chapter Military Officers Association, I believe is David Dragis. If I did not pronounce your last name, I apologize. Just correct me.
Thank you, Chair Pena-Malik, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of this bill. For the record, I'm Dave Dragic, Legislative Director of the Maryland Military Coalition. Now, this bill establishes a position in the Department of Veterans and Military Families that we believe is long overdue. An ombudsman will help strengthen the link between the DVMF and the state's approximately 360,000 veterans, 35,700 active duty service members, and 25,600 National Guard and Federal Reserve members and their families. It will provide a neutral, confidential space for these individuals to raise concerns, investigate complaints, and facilitate conflict resolution without fear of retaliation, a true ombudsman position. And all of this will result in providing feedback to the DVMF and this legislature about issues affecting the uniformed services community in our state so that proactive steps can be taken to address them. And I might add, the note in the fiscal note and the position that there is redundant. If you look at the job description of that community outreach, that is a marketing position. That is not an ombudsman's position. And there's a difference between outreach and receiving incoming, so to speak, as Delegate Miller and her witness provided. So the Maryland Military Coalition strongly supports HB 142 and asks for a favorable report from this committee. And we'd like to thank Delegate Miller for sponsoring this long overdue legislation and appreciate her leadership on this issue.
We have a virtual testimony from the Veterans Committee of the AARP, James Campbell. Will you be so kind and pull them up, please? And I believe this is our first virtual this session. We'll see how this works. All right. Hi, how are you, sir? Oh, he's connected. The audio is connecting. Good afternoon. Mr. Campbell, you can begin your testimony. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't make it today. The weather wasn't very helpful. But I just want to actually follow up on the two previous speakers, especially David Dragas from Maryland Military.
One second. Are you able to put the volume up a little bit, please? And sir, can you, if you could speak a little louder?
Sure.
For some of us.
Can you hear me
that's
now?
one. Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Government Operations Committee. My name is Jim Campbell, President Emeritus of AARP Maryland and a former Maryland State Delegate. I'm here supporting Delegate Miller's Bill 142, House Bill 142, because it establishes the Office of Ombudsman. I think a lot of my points have been covered in previous testimony, but I think one thing that persuaded us to really move on this was according to the veteran, and we do a lot of outreach for veteran groups at AARP. And according to the Veterans Administration website, more veterans are getting health care now in benefits than ever before. But unfortunately, and this is what I guess moved us, it has led to an increase in the number of creditors, what they call shady individuals and companies not accredited by the VA, offering claims assistance and charging hefty fees for their services. The VA says that veterans should never pay a fee for these services, for the initial claims, unless it's through an accredited VA source, such as the attorney, claims agent, or veteran administrative representative. Connecting members of the military and the benefits due them is one of the core goals of ARP, but this is one we think is very important, and the idea would be that this would really clarify for veterans where to go, I think. They could go to other sources, but having an ombudsman there would be a trusted source that the veteran could go to find credible answers about what they're concerned about, and if they really should be paying a fee, if they actually want to look into having somebody do their help them with the application. So we support what's been said, and thank you for the opportunity. Oops. Did I do something?
Seeing none, thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
This actually, I'm not going to conclude the hearing yet. Delegate Miller, as you know, this bill has a fiscal note, and it increases as the years move forward. We do have a cap on fiscal notes. This is a bit more than allowed this year. However, I do understand the importance of it, all right? Because there's always mitigating circumstances why we spend the money, when it's definitely helping people. So this is what I would like to do. I like you to set up an appointment with Morgan Murphy, who is from the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs. And in the witness list, which you received, is her cell phone number. I want you to schedule a meeting with her and with Delegate Kerr, who is actually the chair of the subcommittee, and with our lawyer for the committee as well that deals with that subject matter. And I'll speak to Delegate Kerr about the direction that I want to take. In the fiscal note, they do state that they can implement the 1-800 number with the hotline with existing resources. What I want to do is to see if they can find the monies to do it, okay? So if you could make sure that that meeting takes place, and I'd like you to work with the Chair Kerr, to make sure that his schedule allows the time, okay, that is being discussed. All right? All right. My pleasure. This concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 142. We're going to move on to, I believe, the last bill of the day, which is House Bill 77. And thank you so much, Delegate, for waiting and for being patient, and for your witnesses as well for being so patient. You can get started. Good afternoon.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas
Chairwoman,
tardes.
or Madam Chair, and Vice Chairwoman, and my distinguished colleagues on HGO. What a pleasure and honor to be back before you today. For the record, I am Delegate Chris Eric Boucher, District 5, representing Carroll and Frederick counties. I have to the left of me, as introduced before, retired Colonel Dragics from the Maryland Coalition. And I have to the right of me, Paul Ellington from the State Archives Advisories. And we also have online Mr. President Nick Reading of Preservation Maryland. It's an honor to be back after the success of last year's bill honoring African-American Civil War soldiers who fought for Maryland. And I want to give recognition to Delegate Austin for asking last year about the sailors in the Navy and why that wasn't done. We're building on the success of last year's bill. We're incrementally biting into this. For the public, House Bill 77 seeks to establish the commission to study African-American Civil War sailors in Maryland in an effort to ensure that the contributions of African-American service members during the Civil War are properly recognized. The proposed commission would be tasked with researching, documenting, and making recommendations for honoring the legacy of African American sailors. These efforts will include preserving historical records, promoting educational programs, which I'm very much about, and exploring opportunities for public memorials. By shedding light on their sacrifices and bravery, the Commission aims to ensure that these individuals are rightfully recognized and celebrated for generations to come. African American sailors from Maryland were pivotal in the Union's naval operations during the Civil War. Many of these men were formerly enslaved, who fought for their freedom and the freedom of their children. I have turned to Frederick Douglass and his writings to inspire me on this. After all, Frederick Douglass is one of the great minds of Maryland, and it is his writings that inspired numerous African Americans from Maryland to join the military cause. Because in reading our history, a lot of African Americans are apprehensive about serving for a country that didn't even recognize them as human beings. His great words resonated with numerous citizens in Maryland, which caused them to join the cause. I want to read an excerpt from Frederick Douglass's speeches to encourage soldiers, individuals to serve. Never since the world began has a better chance offered to the long enslaved and oppressed people. The opportunity is given to us to be men. With one courageous resolution, we may blot out the hand-wringing of ages against us. Once let the black man get upon his person the brass letters U.S. Let him get an eagle on his buttons and a musket on his shoulder and bullets in his pocket. And there is no power on earth or under the earth which can deny that which he has learned, the right of citizen of the United States of America. These men served over 170 years ago, and we just heard issues about serving our present-day veterans. These veterans have been ignored for 170 years. There's an important educational aspect to this. As a member of judiciary and a juvenile offender, I realize the social implications of educating our younger adults, the sacrifices that were made to put us here today. I think beyond the recognition and memorials, there is an impact that this study will have upon future generations. Now we are here 170 years after the fact, and the contribution of these brave Americans is still hidden in public records due to racism that permeates society throughout their entire lives. These men went to their graves having sacrificed and never receiving due justice. Enough is enough. One soul is only set free with the truth. Let's expose the truth and educate our children for the sociological benefit for generations to come. I ask that you support the passage of House Bill 77.
Chair Pena-Melnick and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Delegate Boucher's bill. For the record, Dave Dragic, a retired Army colonel and legislative director of the Maryland Military Coalition, and an Army guy supporting a bill on behalf of the Navy, so here in Annapolis. This bill, a companion measure to last year's bill regarding African-American Civil War soldiers in Maryland, will create greater recognition for the more than 2,300 men of African descent who served in the U.S. Navy during the war from this state. It will address the current gap of knowledge regarding their service and contribution, and when a memorial has been constructed, that will serve to not only commemorate the service of these men to the Union, but also how they served important roles on some of the Navy's most important ships. So for this reason, the Maryland Military Coalition strongly supports HB 77 and asks for a favorable report from this committee, and we would like to thank Delegate Boucher for sponsoring this legislation and appreciate his leadership on this issue.
Thank you. Madam Chair, my name is Paul Ellington. I'm with state and local advisors. I'm here on behalf representing the city of Cambridge, and they would like to voice their full support for this. In the interest of your time, we will simply ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
One of our favorite kinds of testimony. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Is Mr. Phelps here? Mr. Phelps, you want to come on up?
Just switch out chairs.
Sure.
The Reverend. Thanks. And we have with us the Reverend Ken Phillips Jr. of the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland.
Yes, we've met, but Madam Vice Chair, good to see you again, and members of the committee. I was going to say the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland embraces this bill because, well, for two reasons, and to be personal too, I'm here as priest and as historian. As priest, the church embraces the concept of truth and reconciliation. We know that stories are sacred, our personal stories are sacred, and that true reconciliation is not possible until we know each other's stories. It's only then that we can honor each other and fully embrace who we are and accept one another and break down the barriers of fear and mistrust that are so easily formed and that we continually perpetuate in our society. As a historian as well, I can tell you that we do have an incomplete history. And I've said this in here before, and you'll hear me saying this again as other bills come through. But it is an incomplete history if it does not include everyone's story and the contributions made by everyone. And stories that, are both heroic, stories that are also tragic, but this is part of who we are. It's the fiber of who we are, the fabric of who we are as people together who have a common stake in the history of this nation and who have brought us to where we are today. And if we cannot understand how we got here, how do we understand, the mistakes that we've made? How do we understand that we're not still making them? How do we learn from the past? This memorial is a small step in continuing our struggle to have a more inclusive approach to our own personal story as a nation. And we applaud that effort. It's an honor to be here with Delegate Boucher as we talk about this. I'm hopeful it can lead us to even more and more conversations. Who knows, we may have a memorial for Bessie Coleman, the Queen of the Airways, first African-American aviatrix, trained in France because she couldn't find a school to train her here, or Bass Reeves, greatest lawman the West has ever known.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you, Delegate, for, and your panel. I'm open now for questions, and we're going to go to Delegate Chisholm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the bill and thank you for your testimony. I want to make sure I understand, because last year we passed the bill for American Civil War soldiers and establish a commission. Are we establishing a separate commission, or are we going to ask this commission to be tasked with now looking at sailors, and would it have been easier last year to add sailors at the time?
Thanks for the question. It can be a little complex. I went over and met with the state archives. They completed the first study commission on the soldiers. Now, it's going to take a little more effort to bite into the sailors because of two different branches of government. But ultimately, the objective is to try to pull it all together and develop some educational curriculum, which I think is the most important component of this. And then the memorials is secondary, which is the visual to catch people's attention and draw them into the subject matter. So once we complete the second study on sailors, then they want to sit down and try to compose it all together, but the memorials be separate, but the overall theme of the two is the same. It's just difficult with two different branches of government. And I think I mentioned last year how the difficulty in the Navy is because the persistent racism, they would only allow 4 African Americans per ship, which is going to make it far more difficult to track down all those sailors where they're assigned than a regiment that is 1,000 people all in one location. But ultimately, it will all be pulled together in an educational package and develop recommendations for the memorials.
Thank you. And the reason I ask is obviously the budgetary restraints we have this year, and that obviously it's got a fiscal note to it. And I was just curious if there's a way to accomplish the same thing, but maybe find a way to reduce the fiscal note by,
Yeah, that's the tough part. Okay. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for this bill and for your dedication to the truth in our history, and thank you all for your support. Really simple question. I see that the commission includes a representative from the Commission on African American History and Culture, but what seems to be absent, both from your witness panel and from the commission is any representation of Black veterans or any support. So we've got the Black Veterans Project here in Maryland. We've got the National Association for Black Veterans, and there's a Central Maryland branch, and there's a Frederick-based Western Maryland branch. And I guess the question is, where are they in this effort to unearth the history? And are they supportive? Have they been invited to participate or to offer testimony?
Oh, I went by the recommendations made from state archives. You know, I'm still technically a rookie as a legislator, so I'm feeling my way through. But you're right, all those components need to be brought into and at the table to discuss how we move forward with this. So an amendment is always, I'm always acceptable to amendment to address the issues that you brought up.
Maybe before it gets to subcommittee, if you can reach out to those groups.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our witness, who is virtual, so if Mr. Nicholas Redding could come up, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Redding. You may start.
Pleased to be here and to have the opportunity to testify. My name is Nick Redding. I'm the president and CEO of Preservation Maryland, which is the statewide historic preservation nonprofit. We are here today in support of HB 77. As the statewide historic preservation nonprofit, we're always looking for opportunities to support and increase awareness of Maryland history and to preserve historic places. And I would offer the only thing different that I can offer than what you've already heard is that so much of Maryland's story begins at the water's edge. And our maritime history is critically important. And this is a big part of Maryland's maritime story that has been overlooked. Our Black sailors and those who served the United States Navy during the American Civil War, which was a critical part of the American success over the rebellion during the Civil War. And so it's an important part not only of Maryland's story, but of the American story. And we were pleased to participate in the original study on African-American soldiers, and now would be very excited to have the opportunity to participate in this as well, to honor their service here 170 years since they served admirably during the American Civil War. And so with that, we ask for a favor.
Thank you, Mr. Redding. Are there any questions for this witness? Seeing none, this bill will be assigned to a subcommittee, and I'm hoping that in the subcommittee we can work to see what we can do about that fiscal note, Delegate Kerr. With that, this concludes the hearing on House Bill 77 and the bill hearings for today. However, we will be having I just got word that the briefing has been rescheduled. Does this mean the committee is done for the day? Wait a minute. Too much cheering going on here. But thank you all very much for your time and your attention to these important bills today. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.